All right, good afternoon, everyone. My connection is still absolutely horrendous, so bear with me here. Having them come out again to fix this mess. First and foremost, I would like to apologize to anyone in Van City's live chat if I stepped on anyone while they were trying to speak or make their point. So hopefully my voice is coming through clearly. Hello, Joe. How's it going? Also, if you're not City Prepper, you probably should be. That would be worth looking at. Good channel, good people over there. But I will say that my internet connection is stronger than Joe Biden's connectivity. So that's important. Both of my Joes are here. Hello, hello. So I do a live stream today because I was working on a couple of other projects, including expanding my own food security. And we'll get into that in just a minute and the importance of doing that. I have a video coming out later today where I'm hitting on a lot of the same things I'm going to hit on right now. So it might be a little redundant if you tune into that. But the head of BlackRock came out and mocked poor people. Now, the level of tone deaf here is absolutely incredible. This is the same company that, of course, is turning an entire generation into a permanent class of renters. And he's mocking you, stating that you are entitled. And I'll read you some of what he had to say about the poors, because it's really quite tone deaf, just unbelievably tone deaf. Let me cue this up. So here's what he had to say. For the first time, this generation is going into a store and not be able to get what they want. Now, this is from Robert Capito, who is the head of the company right now. And he stated additionally that we have a very entitled generation that has never had to sacrifice. He warned, and this is a paraphrase in the article from Fox, that people who have grown accustomed to having everything available to them at the supermarket would soon face, quote, scarcity inflation. Food scarcity. Quote, I would put on your seatbelts because this is going to be something we haven't seen, end quote. Now, if the billionaires are warning you that this is happening and the mainstream media is now running with this, this is real. This is no longer that confirmation bias that we find that happens in the preparedness community. You get people who run a story, we all latch onto it. We're very sure that this is going to be it, and then nothing happens. Our timetables are often maybe a little aggressive, right? But that's because we're a lot more switched on than the average person. Now, I find Capito's statements interesting because past generations of billionaires often viewed themselves as altruistic and they were philanthropic. They viewed themselves as caretakers of the nation that had made them wealthy, and they were often patriotic. Now they no longer believe in borders or nation states at this point. They've moved beyond that. They used to provide company housing for their employees, and there was upward mobility when you worked for these people. There are people who came in at the lowest level to some of these giant operations that our billionaire class ran, and they were able to work their way up from the lowest levels to running factories. That was an actual achievable thing at one point. Now we're at a point where they're so removed from the plight of the normal everyday person that they're focused on a space race. They only care about hedonistic pursuits, including the purchase of certain islands and the enjoyment of things on those islands and each other's islands. So much for their concern about climate-related matters. I would say that it's probably a good idea for them to have a person translator. I think all very wealthy individuals need poor people translators. And I've noticed from working at places throughout the years that you'll have management say something or put on an email that's really tone deaf, and they really need a poor person translator. You need to run these things by said poor. You send it out to everyone, and it makes you look really stupid and out of touch. Well, I would disagree with that, partly a constitutional carpenter, because at least back in the day, the robber barons were at least doing some good in that and not a lot of good, right? They were doing some murky things with national banking and whatnot, but at least they were building libraries. Like they were leaving some type of positive impact on society where we can't really say that. And they've taken over things and send them to DC and wine and dine elected officials. They can dominate every single sector. So yeah, there was historically murkiness too, but like I said, at least they were doing something for the benefit of society. Pointed out, Capito, by the way, is worth $485 billion. So the guy who comes out and tells you that you're going to have to make do, that you're going to have to tighten your belt, is worth $485 billion. It could be more. This is purely an estimate. The next topic and thing I want to hit on right now, and why the food thing is so important and why you need to double down on what you're doing. Rationing has started in Europe. Spain, Greece, and other countries are mulling it over. Spain and Greece have already started, from rationing flour to other products. That's official government policy. That's not the private Western world over the last couple of years. We know Germany is only a week and a half now from running out of eggs per previous reports. Animal feed is going to be in short supply over the next year as well. So, of course, that's going to impact the price of eggs, the price of food, and everything else. Yeah, no, that's good reading, Constitutional Carpenter. And once the unfettered system, the unchecked system that we have right now, I mean, now that our economy has been taken to the level it's been taken to, money and power is ultimately all that matters. And it kind of historically always was, right? But the fact that these people can buy so much influence is really frightening because it does have a direct impact on our lives. Well, it's to hurt people. It is to hurt people. It is to hurt the people, which is why I mentioned there was some level of altruism with past billionaires. Like they enjoyed seeing people not starve. Now it's becoming sort of they're enjoying at this point because they know it's happening. They're telling us it's happening. Could they intervene in these matters in some way? Sure. Is that something that they have any intention of doing? No, of course not. They're going to continue to line their pockets during this whole crisis as the pricing of commodities goes up. I'll touch on that in a video I've got coming out a little later. There's a headline that I have in there from a multi-billionaire who has decided to throw in on the aluminum market right now. $7.2 billion gamble in aluminum because aluminum is very, very short right now. And that's part of the reason you're seeing so many gaps on the shelves too. It's not even just the shortage, it's the shortage of packaging. So the thing with this too, and the goal of this channel here is to alleviate our collective suffering. We don't want to suffer. If you're watching this content, it's because you're switched on and you're paying attention. And your suffering is going to be greatly reduced by security. We really need to get ahead of the inevitable shortages. The cost of seeds and the availability of seeds has been waning for some time. I would encourage you to poke around. You'd be surprised, even at some big box retailers, you can obtain non-GMO seeds, heirloom seeds, the ones that will continue to produce forever and ever. Look into that. As a cost-saving measure, should you put in vegetable beds or actually bulk buy soil from typically the same vendors you would find ornamental like rocks and things for your garden or your front yard. So you should be able to buy a large amount of that for maybe like $100 that can fill easily 6 or 7 vegetable beds that are even a couple feet deep. It's a lot more cost effective than just going and buying bags of soil over and over again. Yeah, I figured the Wi-Fi would be packed. And the speed test that I've been running, everything is crystal clear, but I think that it's probably coming through really choppy. I'm going to be making some more calls about that today. Now, the last thing I want to hit on today, and keeping the stream kind of short, well, 2 other topics. Those who haven't listened to us up to this point, we're not going to convert them. We're not going to convert non-preppers. Not fully, anyway. You can definitely get them a little more switched on. Hey, roaming prepper, how's it going? But you'll certainly see a lot of red pill type conversations occurring. And you'll be able to engage in otherwise rational conversations with them that will be calm about current situation, because you're probably not even going to have to introduce these topics. I argue that it's kind of too late in a lot of cases. So you need to work on building up those relationships, though, around you. We talked about this on Van City's chat last night about making sure you're on good terms with all of your neighbors. But your community, that's going to be what you're going to fall back on. And being able to split the cost along several families or several people as you attempt to bulk buy while you can still bulk buy before the rationing begins would be pretty advantageous right about now. Now, try to have those conversations, keep them very level-headed and rational, because a lot of your relatives already probably think you're off your rocker, and this can certainly be a lonely thing. I no longer care at this point. That's why I've started putting my face out there more on this channel. If people think it's crazy to put extra stuff back at this point, they need them. Again, everyone is telling you, the mainstream media has made it very clear over the last several years that if you are not preparing and have not prepared for shortages, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. The other problem too, as the masses begin to realize what's happening, they're going to start bulk buying. They're not going to prepare. They're going to panic buy. And once they realize the totality of the circumstances, they're going to buy up all the kinds of craziness that they were doing last time. They're not going to approach this from the logical and methodical way that we had previously. And we're going to watch toilet paper and other commodities disappear again. And lastly, today, I'm going to hit on the most important and least valued topic in preparedness, and that's physical fitness. Everybody's favorite thing to talk about is PT for sure. But I really hope that those of you who have joined in on these discussions has started to analyze your physical fitness, where you're at realistically, what you can do, what your limitations are, and you have started some type of program since I started mentioning this, because that is going to be your most useful prep that you can make. And you should start keeping track of your program and see that you're making progress. And I'm not going to recommend anything in particular other than I would recommend at least starting off with full body exercises, especially for calisthenics to get yourself started, and then maybe consider a gym membership, or if you have the space, buying weights and other things for your home. If you haven't really weightlifted before, I would recommend a personal trainer, someone who can watch your form, make sure you're not going to injure yourself. But a lot of these big compound movements, things like deadlift, bench press, as long as you're in the right position, deadlifting is actually super beneficial for your overall physical strength and long-term health. You need to be able to lift stuff and move stuff. Yeah, I've been slacking a little bit working out too, to be honest. But that's one of the reasons why I actually mention it now. Practically every day I do one of these streams, because it reminds me that I need to keep accountability on it too. I'm not just out here saying go do it and not doing it myself. I do take fitness very seriously, and in the lines of work that I've been in, that I'm in, it is important to be able to be physically fit, because you're not going to be able to deal with stressful situations adequately if you're not physically ready to deal with it. And on that other note, as I get closer to 10,000 subscribers, I will be doing a giveaway of this 1110 gear tourniquet holster and this brand new cat tourniquet that has already been pre-staged. It is unused. So this you can just throw on your and have some medical equipment on yourself. Now, this type of stuff is going to start to become very hard to get. We know governments around the world are bulk ordering this stuff right now from a variety of vendors. So I would encourage you to do your due diligence if you go out and buy any medical gear, and make sure that you're getting it from reliable sources. Bear Independent is a good option. There's a number of others. North American Rescue. There's many others. And there's other good tourniquets besides the North American Rescue. Sam makes a really good tourniquet. I run one of their tourniquets on my gun belt right now. And then I have a cat tourniquet on my ankle. And they both operate effectively the same way. So mixing them, I don't see that being that big of a deal. I'm pretty partial to the Sam tourniquet simply because it has a metal windlass and it has a ratcheting system and is not dependent entirely upon the Velcro. And the Velcro, if there's too much debris or blood or other things, it may not work as effectively or efficiently as you want to work. So that's why Sam came out with an improved version of it. The 6th gen trauma dressings are getting hard to find. Yeah, I could see it becoming an issue. Inverted bench is where it's at. Yeah, no, inverted. I haven't really done that. I've been more of an incline guy, but I've seen a number of. I'm trying to remember the bodybuilder's name, but his YouTube channel is Mountain Dog, and he passed away not too long ago. And he had some really great videos, and he was very big in it to like an inverted or like a decline press setup, and yeah, he has some really good stuff on there as far as bodybuilding, and a lot of that is very applicable to what we're doing. You need to be able to get up off the ground. You need to be able to push things. You need to be able to pull things for basic survival and even just daily activities. If you're going to be a successful gardener, you need to be able to use tools there and sweat and do the things, even on a small scale. If you're not in good physical shape, even if you're only out there for an hour or two a day, it could definitely take a toll on you if you're not taking your fitness seriously as you age. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up unless anyone has anything they'd like to chat about or add, any headlines or anything they think will have an impact as we analyze. You're eating venison. Yeah, venison's yummy. I was actually doing I kind of been on a strict carnivore diet recently until I started to reintroduce carbs slowly over the last 2 weeks, mostly in preparation of potentially having to go into my food buckets, which is not something any of us want to have to do. But I think the likelihood of us having to supplement what we're able to get from the grocery store is becoming more likely, especially if we don't have a setup where we're completely sustainable, which is one of the reasons why I'm starting to expand and buy more plants that are already producing, because I don't think we really have the time at this point to just play catch up and grow everything from a seed if we're not already at that point. And where I'm located right now, you can grow food year round practically. So there's definitely some pros to being in the Southeast. Has anyone started their garden or anything? Or are they starting to look at this stuff more seriously? The live stream last night that we did on Van City's channel was probably a big motivator to make me double down today. We were doing some landscaping in the front yard, so I figured I would buy a few or two. I'll buy some more. There's a couple of plants too that I've mentioned before that are also superfoods that you guys might want to look into. One's called Kaya, and you do have to boil it before you eat it, but it does have an insect resistant property because it has high levels of arsenic. So you do have to boil it before you eat it. And then Okinawa spinach is the other one, and that one grows very rapidly as well. I'm considering bamboo possibly, but I'm kind of mixed on that. Should it spread or I need to remove it, that it could become a problem. But I have a couple spots that I could definitely stick it, and I think it would do really, really well here. And there's a million different things you can utilize for. Yeah, I think you're right, Joe, on. And then, yeah, your neighbors are probably going to pick up on stuff. And then we'll likely see. I saw suggestions about this the other day where we may have to have apps or things to when we go into stores and they'll track our purchases. So if you have a Walmart app, for example, and you have purchased too many pounds of this or that, then it won't allow you to buy anymore for X amount of hours or days. So that's where that inevitable panic, I think, is going to set in for a lot of people, and they're going to try to do anything they can to beef up their reserves, but they're not really going to be able to do it, which is the other reason I say go for those plants that produce food now that are readily available, because I think you're going to see a shortage of those soon, especially with the fertilizer shortages. So the pricing on those will go up. So instead of a $15 banana tree, it might be a $30 banana tree or an $80 banana. We don't know what the maximum ceiling of all this is going to be. Yeah, I see bamboo potentially being very annoying. Have you been able to eat any of it? Because that would be a big pro for me. Besides, again, it's wood. I can use it for 100 things. It's super useful. Still frozen where you're at. Yeah. Maybe some container stuff or greenhouse stuff. When I was living out in Colorado, I was looking at uh, greenhouse setups, and there are ways that you can use the earth's. Oh, cut out. Now we're back. Yeah, it's a shame. I had them out here literally digging up line, and it looks like they put it back into the ground the same way they'd done it before, and now it's just a big mess. So you could eat the early shoots that show up about this time of year. Yeah, that's kind of the issue, is how much would you need to produce to make it really a useful thing? That's kind of where I'm at with. I look at a lot of this as mostly being a supplement to what I'll be able to still acquire, because I just don't have the space right now. If I had several acres, it would be less of a problem, but I'm not in that position. But I figure if I can at least subsidize or bring in about 30 to 40% of what I eat from a couple of raised beds and containers, I think that's very feasible, at least for a several month period of time, depending on how long I can get a lot of this stuff to hold or store or potentially can or dry stuff out. There's any number of preservation methods you could consider or play with if you're looking into expanding your garden. Yeah, a lot of people were partying it up when they were getting that UBI check, weren't they? A lot of new car buying, a lot of not necessary expenses. Some people definitely were smart with it and nested most of it away, which is how a lot of people have been able to avoid taking certain jobs again. But it turns out a lot of the demographic that was doing that, something like 90% of that demographic that isn't returning to work over the next 2 years, they're baby boomers. So you're like, oh, that makes sense, because now they've got Social Security and other things that they can rely on. So that's that artificial gap uh, that we're seeing in the labor force right now, is that it was banking heavily on generations that should have been retired to staff positions, or historically would have been by their age bracket. And we know there's any number of reasons why that's not happening. Ooh, yeah, wild mushrooms would be good. I think I could probably do mushrooms too. Yeah, doing a risk assessment around you is probably a pretty good idea. And of course, Freedom Seeds and the storage containers in which they go are always a good investment. There's some really good deals around on those right now. Not the Freedom Seeds, but the feeding devices. You can certainly find a number of deals from a number of vendors. If you're paying more than $10 per Freedom dispenser, that's of the Black Rifle variety, you're probably paying too much right now, to be perfectly blunt. Unless maybe it's your local dealer who maybe has them for 10, 12, $11, something like that. But yeah, I would definitely encourage you to put more of that back, because the pricing on all of that's going to go up. Just as metals go up, as polymer goes up, as the shipping to get it there goes up. And we're probably just going to keep seeing these 20, 30% price hikes. I still have no idea where they get this what are they saying, 6 7 8% inflation, whatever. That's totally not realistic. It's way higher than that. We all know that. I mean, there's certain things that I've noticed price wise have gone up 50, 100%, or several 100% over the last couple of years. So I don't know where they're getting this figure from. And I know that they said using the old metrics, we're at what, a 15% inflation based on using 1980s metrics, which still seems really low. Yeah, practicing fooding is a good idea. And then even, I mentioned sleep deprivation the other day. If you haven't practiced being hungry, now you might be able to in a controlled setting. So that might be worth exploring too. Because same thing, you don't know how you're going to react or how you might act. And I don't mean you fasted for 12 hours. I mean, try going like very snippy by the time you're done with that experiment. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut this off here. And thank you all for joining me today and listening to me ramble. So I hope you guys are taking this seriously and using your time wisely. And I would encourage you even just go to your local big box stores and see what type of fruit bearing plants and things that they have, just so you can at least subsidize what you would normally eat. Make sure you're growing stuff you can eat or potentially stuff you could trade or barter. But a lot of the stuff the stuff like the kaya, the Okinawa spinach, or bamboo, people are not going to view this as a good plan either. So it's not going to attract a lot of unwanted attention. Whereas the vegetable beds and stuff certainly may raise an eyebrow or two over time. But I'm hoping that they mostly create positive conversations, and it might inspire more in the community to consider doing that as well, rather than trying to bum a bunch of zucchini off of me. Because once you start growing that, as we were talking about, it's hilarious how much you end up growing if you're able to make it happen in your vegetable bed. Thank you very much, Roaming Prepper. I appreciate that. And if you aren't subscribed to Roaming Prepper, make sure to check him out. And like I said, make sure you hit up Van City as well. Let him know that I sent you. Take care, guys.